Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
we're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you.
So,
we're standing.
Well,
Do you know, I think this is the first time I've used my standing desk. And when it's a standing desk.
well, it's a good example of don't wait until the crisis happens. Penelope's done her back in.
But luckily I have a standing desk, so we're all good.
So anybody working with her this week, she'll be standing. But that is a really good example. I'm going to make a super segue in a minute, Laura.
Horse bolted.
Get ready. Exactly. Horse bolted. You know, you've already done the thing. I'm going to link it to our topic.
Okay, go on then.
Well, actually, let's just make that very clear. Perhaps could have prevented the click in your bank, not as much as not picking up that great big planter in the
that was
garden.
an error.
Would have prevented it on your own.
It was an unnecessary...
Yeah, unnecessary manoeuvre.
Yeah.
But arguably, using a standing desk more...
Yeah.
Listen, I don't preach from the pulpit.
No, I know
because-
you don't use it.
Because although I do have a cross-leg chair, which is the revelation.
Anyway.
But
Such an old lady conversation.
it's such an old lady conversation, but arguably using the standing desk before you do your
Yes.
back in is better.
I couldn't agree more. Not helpful.
Not helpful, but definitely still good that you've got one to use after you've done it.
So I think-
Otherwise, we'd be doing this from your bedroom or the couch.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
definitely get all the bits and pieces in place for when this does happen. Although better to avoid.
Better to avoid. So, exactly, prevention is better than cure, as we say. And that's a very good super segue for presenting.
Okay.
Because
What's coming?
well, you want to do it up front. You don't want the car crash on the stage at the most important pitch your company's going to give,
Fair
and
point.
you realise, I probably should have stood up and practiced this
Yes.
a bit more rather than just think once I'd written my script, we're good to go.
Yeah, fair point.
And we're definitely going to talk about nerves today as well. So conquering those nerves.
Yeah, so we're looking at the third...
I think that's a super segue, Laura. I think I'm going to have a super segue for prevention is better than cure. For a presentation, the equivalent is better to prepare than to sort of see what happens and afterwards go, oh, that could have been.
Should have,
Could have, didn't. Okay, so we've been talking about presenting.
the love of presenting.
Exactly, fall in love
Not
with
just being good at presenting and being prepped. I mean, actually thinking, I can't wait to get up there and do
I
that.
can't wait. They need to hear this. Not just hear, they need to hear it from me.
Yeah.
I'm going to really rock. Well, and we've got 3 E's on this: making it easy, engaging,
And
and
enjoyable.
enjoyable. So we've talked about 2 tips to make it much, much easier.
Yep.
Get off the script, get it into your body, and make a really clean structure. We've looked at ways of making it really engaging.
And we're going to be looking at enjoyable today.
Yeah, and engaging, just to say, was focus on your audience and also do an interactive
Yeah.
Q&A. And now we're going to...
Well, do you know, the thing about
Make
the
it
enjoyable
enjoyable.
piece is I would offer that if people feel they've made their presenting and presentations easier and engaging, most people would think, job done. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah.
And what we're offering is, yes, you can.
Well, you can enjoy it. I mean, that's the revelation, isn't it?
Well, and that's the step after you've made sure the audience enjoy it. So
Yes.
it's not at the cost of the
No.
audience enjoying it. It's all of it. But don't think that that's not possible. You know,
Yes.
for those people who say that's never going to be me, and people do say that in the work that we do. That's I'm never going to be that. I'm never going to enjoy it. I would challenge that.
I would definitely challenge that on many levels. There are many that's not going to be me that are now me. So, because that's the self-development work, isn't it?
Exactly.
But
I'm going to do a slight segue here. I watched a film yesterday called The Hitman.
yes,
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell, your new best friend.
He's like a sort of slightly secret Hollywood movie star that is basically the perfect man. Anyway, in The Hitman...
Take note, anyone listening. That's the model.
Anyway, in The Hitman, he is a really geeky teacher and he's quite interested in psychology and that's what he teaches. Anyway, he's talking about how the brain can kind of morph into... You can choose your identity and you can change who you become. I mean, to be fair, it's quite extreme. He sort of changes into a hitman. But
Right,
besides
different
point,
podcast.
Different podcast. But point being... attributes and elements and qualities of an identity or personality that you think are so far removed from where you are psychologically in terms of how we know the brain works. I'm not saying become a hitman, but I'm saying you can definitely add qualities and attributes to who you are today.
Not sure that's a segue, more of a sort of...
I just wanted to talk about Glenn.
Yeah, goes about Glenn. But what I do think is what's really useful there, other than talking about Glenn, I mean, every week now we have some Hollywood star, don't we?
It's true.
It's like a renewal, though. They don't last long for you, do they? It's week on week. Anyway, but what is useful about that?
Keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh. keep it fresh. But honestly, again, listen up. Anyone listening? There you go. I mean, you've literally got the how-to list. But what is really useful about that is if you are looking at the title of this podcast, if someone's asked you to do a presentation, if it's part of your remit at work and you ever find yourself thinking or saying, I'm not somebody who can present, or I'm not somebody who enjoys presenting.
Go and watch the Glenn Powell movie.
Yeah, that would be your excuse to go and watch The Hitman again. But actually, whenever you catch those phrases... I'm not somebody, I would never, I can never. Those are really good red flags to catch that you've set an identity. Now, I'd never be a hitman, maybe more justification for that. Although, you never never say never, Pen, never say never. You just don't know what context you're going to find yourself in. But if you find yourself saying, yeah, no, I hear you, Philippa and Penelope, and all of you at 4D, but I am somebody who is never going to enjoy presenting. Catch that sentence.
The alarm bells going off in the 4D office.
Exactly, alarm bells going off. That is a neural pathway that you've been down one too many times, and we would like to offer you. Let's build a new one.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! You are somebody who can definitely enjoy it.
Yeah. So
or at least not find it the biggest nightmare.
Well, exactly. At least not sort of go into that sort of fight or
because
flight.
actually we are talking about falling in love, and we've all been in relationships, and it's not always the top of the roll. Well, that's not a good analogy, is it? Because the top of the roller coaster is terrifying. But it's not always poppies and roses, is it? Like, it's not always...
Phil, never a true word.
Never a true word. So when we say fall in love with presenting, we're also allowing for, the peaks and troughs that can come with that.
Yeah.
But you can have great moments, even preparing it, even on stage, those exhilarations when something lands, you're connected to your message, you're connected to your audience, and we're going to give you some
And
tips.
also, it's a little bit like, maybe how we do view Hollywood celebrities or people on Instagram, where we think... Well, they just
you.
People generally, they find it easy, or they have a talent for that. And most people have worked at their talents. Most people don't kind of get born into being an amazing public speaker. There may be a few exceptions, but most people work at it.
Churchill froze for 3 minutes apparently on his maiden
right?
speech. Yes, and what he was really good at, he learned. Anybody who's seen any footage of him or any films about him, what he got really good at, and this is a man after my own heart, is if something happened and the people around him said, you're going to have to speak to the press, he'd grab, wherever he was, he'd grab a napkin, he'd grab a scrap of paper, and he'd get writing. But
that's how you do all your
That's how I do it. But he had learned what he needed to do.
Yeah.
And yes, he was a great orator, but he absolutely understood his preparation process. He wrote those words down, he edited them, and he learned those kind of key phrases.
Yeah.
That it's not about you're born with these words just imprinted on your mind and you're just a naturally good speaker. It's like anything. I was watching a Instagram video of the cast of The Greatest Showman
I
in
love
the
that
in the
video.
studio, all
the
singing.
rehearsal
Yeah, and there's
space.
one in the rehearsal room, and there's one the other one is Les Mis, sorry, in the studio.
Yes.
And, you know, you're seeing sort of Eddie Redmayne and people, you know, all singing this amazing sort of 6-7 part harmony. And, you know, I was at the same drama school as Eddie Redmayne. Like, he was not born just knowing how to do that. Like, you work
Well,
at it.
also, whilst it is a rehearsal video and looks like, they've just all rocked up to the studio, how much prep did they put into their parts?
Well, especially when there's other people.
But then once they've got their
Yeah.
preparation piece, which we did on the easy section of this podcast, how enjoyable must that have been?
When you've got it, you know you've got it, and we're going to put those finishing pieces on that really, really anchor you and make you enjoy. I mean, I'm getting excited even talking about it. So, okay. So we're going to give you the two pieces to this, and then we're going to give a bonus one on this, because this is our last one on falling in love with presenting for the moment. We will, I'm sure, revisit this very important topic.
We will.
But the two pieces we want to talk about today, the two tips are to connect to purpose, so present with purpose.
Yeah.
So it's not just information. And the second one is rewire your nerves. You can change those nerves. And then we're going to do a little sort of codicil extra PS on slides.
Okay.
Because
it's tip after tip after tip.
it's just the gift that keeps on giving.
I think the first one for me is probably, like, for me, the most important one that I have learned.
Presenting with purpose. Right? What do we mean by that?
Well,
And why don't people do it?
Well, one thing I'm going to say is, and it does go back slightly to the second episode we did on this, but for me, the purpose of getting up to present is how much love you have for the content and how much you want the audience to share it. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's often not what we have in our minds when we get up to present. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what is my purpose of being here? And that shift for me has been an absolute game changer. Mm-hmm. Like, we've got a really big session coming up next week at 4D. Myself and Matt are presenting to a really large group. And I'm excited for them, because what I want for them is to have a great time with this work, because that's how I feel about it. And that is very different to, I wonder if I've got all my bullet points on my slide.
Exactly. And this really makes me sort of link at our overarching 4D model, that really where this company started, where it came from, was people who communicate physically, emotionally, intellectually, and with intention, which is purpose, are head and shoulders above everyone else. Most people are physically showing up and then intellectually downloading information. Yeah. Some people might inject with a bit of emotion. Now we're cooking. Yeah. You communicate from 4 dimensions. You add into that my driving intention, the purpose of why I'm here, why I care, what I want you to care about, stories that connect to that. You are cooking on gas, my friend. Presenters, leaders, teams, communicators who communicate in 4 dimensions, physically engaging, you know, using their body language, gesture, taking that space, emotionally connecting, intellectually clear, and, you know, not overloaded, just the right information that people need, and finally with purpose, with intention.
And
I mean, that's what you want to hear, isn't it?
All of them are important, and we've spoken about different elements of those 4 dimensions. So, for example, in the first episode of this series of 3, we spoke a lot about structure, so the intellectual dimension. In the second one, we certainly spoke about emotion, so engaging the audience through emotion. All of them are important in all of these aspects.
And practicing by getting it into your body, so you're communicating physically.
This last episode about purpose, if you can get connected to why you're standing there and why you're talking about that topic, it is an absolute game changer in terms of how you feel about standing up there. Because really, it's not about, I hope they like me, I hope it's okay, I hope, you know, I don't lose my weight. Of course you don't want that to happen, but you're standing there because you absolutely love it.
And that is the piece that makes it more enjoyable, because if we think about it like layers, like a nice cake or something, if you get caught at the layer of, will I remember my words, will I get it right, will they like me, that is not enjoyable.
No, for anybody.
That's just tortuous. That's, will I get it right or wrong, that's waiting for the failure, that's full of anxiety and stress, because that is what is in the mix. I cannot get anything wrong. If you're connected to
purpose. So I want to motivate the people in this room to go and read more, or I want to excite this audience around the innovations that we've got in GM foods or whatever you're talking about. If you're connected to that, fluffing a word, dropping a line, or missing a slide does not matter. That's not the purpose of this presentation. And also, somebody said to me years ago, if you're connected to purpose, I heard this story about the guy who set up the Eden Project. Now, whether this is true or apocryphal, but that he was trying to fund it, this is years ago, and found himself in sort of small halls and in front of 6 people wondering, what am I doing? Like, this is going nowhere.
So the Eden Project, for anybody who doesn't know, is a sort of
it's like a biosphere
ecosystem down in the West Country of the UK. It's an absolutely remarkable place. This gentleman set up.
Yeah, and also sort of, you know, place for research and really understanding the how exactly ecosystems and how they work. And he was passionate about this project. Obviously, it was going to cost a lot of money. He just sort of went all over. He would talk to anybody about it. Not because he had to give information to people, but because he
loved it.
He was he cared about it. He wanted to make it happen. And he would find himself in front of, like, you know, sort of 4 or a handful of people, and got to a point where he was wondering, you know, sort of, what am I doing? Like, what is this really worth it? But that purpose kept driving him, because he wanted people to hear about it. He wanted to talk about it. He wanted people to really feel like he did how important this was going to be. And so he just kept going. And it was the purpose that drove him to keep going, and the purpose that energized him to stand up in, you know, some tin pot hall somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And eventually there was one person in the right audience who had the funds, heard the talk and said, we need to talk, let's make this happen. And that is about purpose, because you're gonna get exhausted if it's just about
a schedule
and information. But that purpose is going to drive you. And also that person who did connect to the cause and did have certainly the connections or the funds to do it, could feel the purpose. He could feel that energy and
that's
connection.
really what drives us and motivates us as human beings to engage with other people and feel motivated. And I would offer to people out there, some of you may already know what your purpose is, whether that's in your job or life generally.
And each presentation might be different.
Yeah, each presentation might be different. But some of us might be thinking, well, you know, it's like the weekly or the monthly update. I don't know how purposeful it is. It can be really, really simple. It can be as purposeful as, I'd really like these people to walk out after 20 minutes with a smile on their face. Or I'd really like to connect with one person in this audience today. Like, it can be really, really simple.
Yeah. Or I really want to reassure this team that we're going to get there.
It does not have to be massive and life-changing or on every occasion. You may have something that really connects you. I mean, I certainly feel like this work at 4D, at a sort of surface level, it's communication and leadership development. But for me, it's really about helping people to wake up and be much more aware of the life they're living.
And the feedback you often get is it's been life-changing for me.
So for some of us, we've taken some time in our lives to get connected to purpose. If you don't feel like that, please don't worry. It's really about thinking something quite simple.
Beyond I need to get this done. A quick word from us at 4D Human Being. If you're enjoying the show, please do click follow so that you can have the 4D Human Being podcast instantly in your feed. And we'd love it if you liked and reviewed us. Let us know what you think.
Please do think of 1 or 2 people that you could share the 4D Human Being podcast with. Somebody who would really benefit from the content you're listening to right now. Back to the show.
Exactly.
So if you've got a presentation coming up, if you've got a small section in a meeting that might be coming up, it doesn't have to be the big sort of, Davos or TEDx talk. Ask yourself this question. Beyond the content that I need to put together and the information I need to share, why am I standing up in front of these people? If it was just about information, you could send them an email or a document. Why do you care? What is it about this topic that you connect to, that you care about? What is the purpose that really anchors you to this topic? And if your answer is, well, it's just my job or it's work, go one below that. So what is the impact
of the work that you do? Why is it important? And maybe you've got a story that you can connect with that presentation and for yourself that's going to help you really make that link between your own human purpose and the presentation that you're giving. So if you've got a story about the time that you helped out a friend, maybe that's going to connect you to the purpose of talking to the team and talking about collaboration and being there for each other. Like, how can you help yourself connect to intention and purpose before you stand up and talk to other people about it? And that is going to help you. If you forget a couple of words or you're not quite sure where you are, go back to that core sentence. I'm here today because I really, really want you to feel and understand that you've got each other to help you out in the tough times.
And it's going to make it so much more enjoyable for you. And of course, it's going to make it more meaningful and enjoyable for the audience. But exactly as you said, Phil, if we can get connected to that, doesn't necessarily matter if I'm not working.
Talk to that.
You know, I'm there. I mean, I'm enjoying it because it's meaningful to me. And, you know, in terms of sort of meaning making, you know, this really is our sort of longer term eudaimonic sort of happiness system, if you like, is having purpose and having meaning in our lives. Yes, if you're a wonderful sort of joke teller or storyteller, you can give people a good sort of hedonic good time for 20 minutes or pass out the brownies.
Pass out the brownies.
Do it. But really what stimulates us long terms in terms of our contentment and our well-being and our happiness is that eudaimonic well-being, which is all about purpose and meaning.
Purpose
so if you
meaning,
can find that in your message, in your role, you're going to really enjoy delivering your messages a whole lot more. And your audience is going to enjoy it more as well.
So you can think universal truths on this. There's loads more on this, obviously, if you work with us, but also if you sign up to the 4D on-demand digital platform, we've got loads on storytelling and loads of stuff there that'll help you understand universal truths, what connects us as human beings, what engages us when people stand up and talk, give presentations and tell stories. So make it human, make it purposeful.
Now, if we found our purpose, can be small, can be big,
can be changeable,
there's still often something that gets in the way of a presentation being enjoyable for us. And this goes back to our physical body, the nervous system, what's kicking in, what's happening, that means we don't always sort of skip up onto the stage smiling and laughing.
And I know that we've both, and Matt as well, have had a lot of clients. I mean, a presentation course does not go by without talking about nerves, sleepless nights, the anxiety and the stress. Now, that is partly answered by shifting the mindset from getting something right to connecting to purpose, practicing in a different way, structuring it well, putting your attention on your audience rather than yourself. So all of the previous tips are really going to help with that. And let's go right to the bullseye of nerves. And I love this. It's so wonderful though, isn't it? When you sort of really understand, when you can separate out, this has been, I mean, it's such a huge thing, whether you're thinking about your own personal development, if you're in therapy or coaching, whether you've had a difficult past or something, or a curveball later in life, when you can understand that your physiological state can be, if you like, managed as its own thing, aside from all the narrative that we give it, because we often think about nerves and anxiety as, well, you know, it's all of these truths that we think
has kicked off the nervous system,
and all of these thoughts that we have, all the fears and the worries, that all gets tangled with feeling nervous. I'm nervous because, oh my God, what if they don't like it? And there's somebody in my team that I know they're very judgmental, or my boss is going to be there, or her boss is going to be there, and all of this becomes the anxiety. But actually,
then the heart starts racing, and we're thinking we can't control it.
We're thinking we can't control it. But what's actually happening underneath all of these thoughts is the nervous system has kicked into fight or flight, into the sympathetic nervous system, and your state has changed. Now, there's a few things on this. One, of course, is very simply to regulate your state, because I know it can be difficult to believe, but when your state changes, your thinking changes. But even more than that, and this is one of my favourite pieces of sort of human development and research. Now, your brain, I love this so much, does not know the difference between anxiety and nerves or excitement and exhilaration. The only way it knows the difference is by what you tell it.
Yes.
So if we think about all of the physiological experiences or events that are happening in the body. If you love, bungee jumping, or if you love sort of kite surfing or roller coasters or parachute jumping or I don't know what else would it, or football or anything. If you think about times where your adrenaline is up, your heart is pumping, you're clenching your fists and your shoulders are tight and your jaw is sort of clenched and all, because you're so excited.
Yeah.
And in that context, you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. So you're telling your brain, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going. Are you coming with me? We're doing it together. We're excited because we've chosen to do this.
And I think we can often think that the brain is fully 100% in charge at that point.
Oh,
and that the body is responding physiologically like that because of what our brain has told it.
Yeah.
And that it's a loop. To be fair, so it is two-way, but the body is kind of in charge here. The body is responding to signals out there in the world. You walk up to your football stadium or you're in the queue to go on the roller coaster. All your body has is the information about its environment, what's around it. So your body starts to have a physiological reaction, sending signals to your brain, and your brain will interpret that and then attach a meaning to that. And of course, I think lots of us think that the brain is the thing that starts the process off.
Well, do you know what? One of my absolute favourite, I think I've talked about this before in dialectical behavioural therapy, they have the idea of the emotional mind, rational mind and wise mind. But the thing I want to say on that is I have this image of the rational mind being this sort of tiny little figure sitting on this big throne thinking that it knows everything. And of course it really doesn't, but it has no idea that it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, what I want to say on that is, so we've got 2 tips on this. One is a visualisation. I'm going to come to that second. But the first one is when the anxious feelings and thoughts start coming, and the rational brain will totally justify this. Yeah, this all makes sense. Of course you're nervous because you're going to fail, because you're not as good as Bob in the team, because your boss is going to be there, you didn't do well last time, you don't really know this topic. I mean, it will go on and on its little throne, on its big throne, but it's little, with reasons why you should be terrified. So the first thing that you can do on this is practice when you're in an anxious state. Because if you imagine going and giving your presentation and the nerves come up, if you've practiced in that state, you are going to be so ready. You're like, of course. Yeah. That's what happens.
This is normal. This is what I wanted to happen.
Exactly. This is how I've practiced it. I've practiced it at a high adrenaline spike so that when I'm on stage, I go, all right, there's the heart rate. Brilliant. Up, there's the adrenaline. Great, let's go. Rather than, I think what can happen when we get anxious is we will do anything other than actually practice our presentation. We want to distract, we want to maybe write some more, do some more research, or go and try and do something else, or put our fingers in the brain.
And when those physiological reactions happen to us, which they happen to everybody, I mean, even the most experienced actors before they go on stage have these physiological responses. It's totally normal. It's how our bodies are designed. And if we don't do that kind of prep beforehand, that real sort of active prep, of course, those physiological responses are happening to us.
Yes.
Whereas if we actively kind of prep and get the heart rate moving, we are creating our physiological responses, and that is a very, very different loop that then gets kicked off in terms of your brain-body loop. So one of the biggest tips, as Phil said, is get in charge of how your body is behaving. You can actively get that adrenaline pumping. And then, as far as you're aware, you are doing that through choice. It done to you.
And
very different.
You can check out Andrew Huberman from some years ago. He did some research on that you can have agentic activation of the nervous system that you're choosing to. And what we're talking about now is, even if you're thinking about that presentation, or you're thinking about having to sort of do it, and the anxiety comes up, take that moment and practice it. Stand up and use that adrenaline, because you're coding your brain exactly that this is the fuel. And when this anxiety comes up, I get up and I deliver.
And this is what I wanted.
This is
all planned.
So that's the first bit. The second piece you can do beforehand, and this is a visualization. Again, remember, your brain only knows what you tell it. So if you let the default system kick in, the loop will be nerves, heart rate. Oh no, this is terrible. I don't want to do it. I want to run away.
Bearing in mind, we also have a very strong negative bias. So that's where the brain will go. When the body kicks off, that's where the brain will go.
Exactly. So you can do a wonderful, wonderful piece of recoding. And remember, the first time, you might feel like, well, I still feel like it's going to be terrible. Remember, you're building new neural pathways, so you need to do this a few times. It won't take long. It really won't. When those feelings of anxiety come up, so let's say you haven't really been thinking about it and suddenly it crosses your mind, all those nervous signals supposedly have come into your body, the heart rate's up, tense, shoulders, jaw, all of that. This is the moment to start visualizing. When these feelings are still in your body, you're going to visualize yourself giving that presentation, giving that talk, standing up in that meeting. You're going to visualize yourself with your shoulders broad, with your arms out, looking around the room, making eye contact with people. They're smiling at you. They're enjoying it. It's going really, really well. The slides are all marvelous behind you, not distracting, just the right amount of support. Your message is absolutely on point. You've got 3 really nice core messages. You've got a story you're telling. Everyone's looking at you. They're starting to nod. Yeah. Some of them are taking notes. Some of them are nodding at each other. You're going to visualize as these feelings come up in your body. You're going to visualize giving this presentation and it going really, really well. And now you've told your brain, these feelings of kind of my heart rate up or my shoulders going a bit tense. Oh, these feelings are about turning the engine on to give people a great time in my great presentation.
And it's looking great in my head.
And this is good. So these feelings now, these physiological signals are now going to get coded gradually. You do this visualization a few times. They're going to get coded with, all right, this is when I stand up and really give some great stuff to people. This is when I really deliver.
And I would offer that the nerves piece around presenting is almost the epitome. It's the perfect example of whether the world is happening to you or you're happening to the world. Because yes, things physiologically happen to our body. Yes, the body is reading things and things will happen. Ultimately, you are the only person that is inside your own body. You are the only person that has choice in terms of how you respond to what your body is doing.
Yeah, and how you interpret.
There's nobody else can do that for you. So it's just such a wonderful example of, are you allowing sort of pre-patterned narratives to inform you how you're going to respond to that, or are you awaken at choice in terms of how you're going to respond to that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm not saying it's easy. It takes some practice, and we can rewire that kind of brain-body loop in terms of the narrative we attach to it.
Absolutely.
It's one of the best things we can do.
Exactly, and we've been so fed that story that presentations are, frightening, and that's just a story.
Yeah.
For some people, they just love going for a run. The story for them is that runs are great.
Yeah, runs are fun.
Runs are fun.
I haven't done that rewiring yet.
Yeah,
but similar with the bungee jump. I haven't done that rewiring, but it's not impossible.
The point being, it's a narrative.
Yeah.
And actually, you can recode it. It's just I think it's one of the most exciting things.
Yeah.
So, take charge of your nervous system. Rewire what your brain believes those signals are actually about.
Yeah.
And we want to rewire it with that feeling of that we're just about to go and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. This is going to be great. Come on, let's go. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got 2 tips on that. One is visualizations beforehand every time you get those nerves, and notice if the rational little person sitting on the big throne says, oh, there's no point doing this visualization. It won't work. It's still frightening. You're bigger and better than that little voice trying to keep you stuck where you are. So say, no, I think we'll give it a go. Give it a go. Playfulness and curiosity will banish that little voice.
Yeah.
Do that visualization. Have a play with how amazing you can make that visualization. Massive stage. You're incredible. They're on their feet. The roses are being thrown onto the stage. You can really play with it.
Yeah.
And then the second tip that we have, which we did first, was connect to purpose.
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? One sentence. If someone said, why are you giving this presentation? You've got one sentence that says, because... ...
If I could offer a little sort of bonus tip in terms of the purpose, if anyone's finding it challenging to get connected to it, and I know I've mentioned this already on this podcast, but we do hear people say, well, it's not that important, or I don't really know.
It's just a team meeting.
One thing I would really offer is think about that balance between the content and the task and the people sitting in front of you, because sometimes if we really can't get connected to the message that we have to give on an occasion, get connected to the human being sitting in front of you. So it's a nice tip if you're struggling to find your purpose.
Yeah, what do you want for them? Why should they care? Lovely. Okay, so one final tip before we wrap up falling in love with presenting is slides.
Now we could do a series
a whole thing. But I just want to give just 3 things to think about on this. And again, on the 4D On Demand, we've got whole modules on mastering the slide secrets. I think that module is called, in the presentation skills series on 4D On Demand, which is just having a little revision now. It's all going to be
looking good,
looking groovy. And there's a lot more great content coming on that. So you'll be hearing more about that very soon. But on slides, the word is less. Less. And there's 3 ways to think about this. Less slides.
It's really just one word that you need.
It's true though, isn't it, with slides?
It's so true.
I mean, aside from that, like you say, we could talk, there's lots to talk about with slides now, particularly with AI. Like there's no excuse now not to have really good whizzy slides, and also to teach AI what do people really want to see back there. But anyway, 3 things. The word less is through all of them. Firstly, less slides. Secondly, less content on your slides. And thirdly, your slides are less important than you. You are the presentation. So whenever you're thinking about slides, less. Don't do them first. Do them afterwards, because they're there to support what you've created. Yeah. Less. Okay, so that's just a little tip on slides. Do not make those slides more.
Which is more enjoyable for you because you have to prep less.
Exactly. So we've come to the end of falling in love with presenting. We hope that those 3 areas of easy, engaging and enjoyable help, and all of those tips that are included in those subcategories. If you'd like more, there are plenty of places to get more at 4D. Of course, you can get in touch, and whether that's one-to-one or one-to-many, big groups, conferences, and of course 4D On Demand. And you've got the free level of 4D Essentials.
Loads of tips on presenting.
Loads of really nice videos and articles and podcasts on great presenting tips. And there's a whole presentation skills series in that free level.
So you can find us at 4dhumanbeing.com. Also, please do share this podcast with anybody that you know who finds presenting a little nerve-wracking.
Yes. I mean, this could be the gift that you give to other people, couldn't it? Because I bet you know somebody who gets completely terrified and sleepless nights when they think about presenting. So if you know somebody that deals with that or avoids it, then yes, do pass this podcast their way and let them know they can sign up to free courses at 4D Human Being, so the essentials level. And of course, you can always get in touch with us. It's an absolute joy. We like presenting very much. We love it. And
but I would say, doesn't feel like it's always been like that in my life. I've had various different phases and focus areas of my career. Yeah. And I can certainly think back in the day, I did not feel like, hey, I'm going to be jumping on a stage. I do feel like that now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And still get nervous, but we do this work. We use these tips.
Yeah.
So go make it fun, enjoyable, engaging, easy, all those things for your audience and for yourself. Take care and go fall in love with presenting.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.